Good morning.
Good morning.
Pleasure to be back here again this year. Today we honor law enforcement, but as you can see, there's more to law enforcement than what we read about and what people see. God has amazing ways of speaking with people. And my daughters, last Christmas, I shared this story with Pastor Mike earlier this week. They put 52 statements. Some were Bible verses, some were just thoughts, just different things. And I was to open one every week. Last Sunday, when I opened it, it was a Bible verse. John 15:13. They're random picks out of the little jar. Okay? And John 15:13 reads, "No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." For us, we're willing to lay down our lives for strangers, not just friends. So I thought that was kind of amazing. And then Monday was National Police Week recognition, and a dignitary was giving a speech and used the same Bible verse. So to me, that was God saying, "You're on track."
Amen.
Trying to keep myself in order here and on pace so I don't run too lengthy in my conversation. As my daughters can attest, I can get very long-winded, especially when disciplining. One of the things about law enforcement is when you have an encounter with the individual, you see us in uniform, you see us as an authority. Most of the time it's in your rearview mirror as we're pulling you over, and no one's happy to get pulled over, not even us, and we do get pulled over. But I want to share with you a little bit different than last year. Last year I told you my personal story. I've been in law enforcement for 32 years. In 1987, I lost a partner. He was murdered. Later that year, I lost my brother, who was in the military. This is his helmet. And this is why it's on the stand today. Because a lot of law enforcement officers also served in the military. You don't know that about them at the time because most people don't take the time to meet us. Throughout my time with you this morning, I'm going to be making several references to both military and to firefighters. And I want you to understand that I have the utmost respect for the military and the firefighters. So please keep that in mind when I make the comparisons later on. Sorry, I got a glimpse of my daughter, so it kind of took me down. You know, the fire helmet. Everybody sees firemen as heroes all the time. Whether they're in uniform or they're at home or they're at the firehouse, a firefighter is everybody's hero. And that's the way they are always thought of. What people don't understand is there are a lot of us that were also firefighters. This is my fire helmet. I was a firefighter for 30 years while being a law enforcement officer at the same time. I was kind of a glutton for punishment, you might say. Didn't know what I wanted to be when I grow up, and I still don't. So, we are also heroes as firefighters. The military, again, I share the utmost respect for the men and women that protect this country. The difference being, they usually know who their enemies are. And they usually work in teams, in companies, in units to protect. They take an oath to protect the country, and they do it for maybe a 4-year term. They may make it a career, but usually they're short terms. When a police officer when a person takes the oath to become a police officer, it is a lifetime commitment. For the most part, you have to serve at least 20 years, sometimes 20, nowadays it's 25 years before they can retire. Some of us don't learn. As I said, I'm in here 32 years now. And the tactical helmet just kind of represents law enforcement and the added protection that we need. So when you see a police officer, as Pastor Mike stated, reach out to them and say thank you. For the most part, we receive the negative press. The society we live in thrives on negativity. We are trying to change that. Law enforcement officers all over the country are trying to enter the social media by putting out fun videos of one officer that was singing in his patrol car to a certain song, and the video went viral, and it showed a lighter side of law enforcement. Some of the additional differences I'll get into in just a couple minutes. But to make a difference in our lives as police officers or law enforcement officers, to have someone thank us, as we do anytime we see a military man in uniform, we always rush up to them and we thank them for their service. I can't begin to tell you how important that is to us. So please continue that effort. Now to tell you a little bit about what happens in our lives. At the end of my segment, we'll show another video that will give our thanks to the officers that gave their lives for the job. But now I want you to understand a little bit of the impact of the day-to-day life that it has on us. Yes, we do get up every morning. We work shift work. Sometimes we're working 7 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, 3 to midnight, midnight to 7 in the morning, 24 hours a day, police officers have to work. But every time we have to leave the house, we never know if we're coming home. It's kind of a difficult concept to really wrap your head around. And I'm going to try to explain some of it as we go through. A lot of us have seen police officers sitting at a restaurant sitting at a donut shop. I hate saying that, but it's true. As I said last year, it's not for the donuts, it's for the coffee. Sometimes they just happen to make their way to our plates. But we try to stay healthy. We try to stay fit. But we can go from laughing, as we have just this past moment, to a life-threatening, a life-changing, a life-altering event. I'm honored that Trooper Beck, correct, is with us. She's on duty now. Right now you see her, she's standing, gracing us with her presence. But in the crackle of a radio transmission, she will be gone in a heartbeat to help someone. It may be to help someone that has passed out. We get dispatched on every ambulance call. It may be someone is robbing a bank. We don't know. Crime occurs 24 hours a day. So, in 5 minutes, she could be staring at someone with a gun, a knife. That is so out of their mind that they will attack and take our life, or try to take our lives. Our training kicks in. We try to do our best. We are not allowed to be afraid. We are not allowed to show emotions. And that all takes a toll on the individual. The media tries to work with us, try to show you the lighter side of law enforcement, but unfortunately, the evil side takes over. The media, that is. As Paul Harvey alluded to, I grew up on Paul Harvey. I loved listening to his stories. When doing the research to make for this presentation last year, I found out that Paul Harvey's father was a police officer and lost his life in the performance of his duties. So that's what makes that even more special, to me at least. We go through an academy. You have to be 21 years old to go into the academy. And as an academy instructor, we train them to become police officers. We try to train them how to handle themselves, how to drive vehicles, how we apply stressful situations to them to try to make sure that when they graduate, we have given them all the tools to perform their duties. But one tool that we cannot truly give them is training on how to deal with the effects of the job. Luckily, we have many people that are interested and concerned with our safety, our mental health. Ministers and pastors and priests are all there to help talk to us. Unfortunately, it's difficult to understand how we are feeling when you haven't been there. And I don't wish that on anyone other than those that have taken the oath to become a law enforcement officer. The emotional strain is unbelievable. After an 8-hour shift, most police agencies do 8-hour shifts. However, our wonderful state police do 12-hour shifts, and it's grueling. It really is. You think that we're just driving around, but we're not. We have to remember, especially in the overnight hours, we're driving down the street, we're driving through a neighborhood to see what lights are on in a house, what lights are off the next time we come through, or what vehicles are in driveways. We have to make sure everyone is safe while they're sleeping. Yes, we have to pull over the violators of moving vehicle and traffic laws. And that's usually the most encounter that the general public has, is when you get pulled over. Yes, it's upsetting, but there's usually a reason. The laws are on in the books to keep everybody safe on the road, and I hope that no one in this room has lost anyone in a vehicle accident, but those happen more times a day than I care to remember. One of the other things that people don't understand about law enforcement officers is, yes, we are there at the accidents, but one of the toughest jobs in law enforcement is when you're investigating that accident and there's a dead body, and you have to go and tell that family that their loved one is never coming home. It's something I've done too many times, and I can't explain how it is to watch someone's world crumble in front of you. What this does to us as individuals is it makes us kind of hard. When we come back home, we take the uniform off, we leave it in our locker at work, because at the current times we are so hated by the public that to leave the job and still be in uniform is very dangerous, because we are targeted right now. And I hope and pray that that will change. But for now, that is our life. But we bring these bottled up emotions home. And we try very hard to be good dads, husbands, sons, daughters, whatever. And it's difficult. Some people, if you have a relative that's a police officer, you might kind of understand this a little bit better. But sometimes we just need to be alone because we're not ready to talk. My daughters were raised very strict. They're one's in college. One's getting ready to go to college, and, as I said last year, they're in bed by 8 o'clock at night. It's a curfew I try to enforce, but they're a little too far away. But it makes from the time they could walk, I didn't realize it, but I was drilling them. I was when they were toddlers learning how to walk, I would not rush to assist them. They needed to learn that on their own. I was very strict in my tone of voice. And I would tell them when we were in the car, I was preaching different vehicle and traffic laws and look at this individual, look at that individual. And I didn't realize it. And then when my daughter was in her first year of college, my oldest daughter, she spoke to me and said, you were right. It's like, all that you told me, and this particular conversation was about drinking and everything. And the way people act. And living the sheltered life of being with a police officer, they didn't really experience that until they got to college. But all of a sudden, everything I've been doing the light started to come on. So I'm thankful for that. But that was not an easy childhood for them. As police officers, not only do we not know if we're coming home, depending on where you are in the law enforcement world, you are on call 24 hours a day. You're always on call 24 hours a day when you're in law enforcement, but certain jobs you're called in more often. I was a forensic specialist, so I was on call all the time. And when my daughters were young, infants, I had a terrible month where I had to investigate 3 infant deaths. So I bring that home. And it's amazing, you can't hug a child enough. But it's the mind, it's what it's doing, what we're being exposed to, and the filters we have to put in place so that we don't do the things that the media accuses us of. There are some officers that can't handle the pressure and turn to alcohol, which is never good. Turn to drugs, again, never good. And then there are those of us that just don't communicate well with our families, our loved ones. And our tragedy is divorce. I am divorced. And the job had a lot to do with it. The desensitizing of ourselves to what's going on around us. It really does take a very strong effect on our lives. Not only does it have an emotional effect, but countless times I had to go to work and miss dance recitals, plays, things that my children were involved in. One Christmas I had to get special permission. I got called into work, but I said I'm not missing my daughter in a Christmas play. So I got a break to go home, go to the church, see the Christmas play, and then get back to work. So law enforcement administrators understand the importance of family and communication. So we really do try to support families and try to get them to understand what's going on. When an individual starts in the police academy, there's a meeting that they hold in the early stages of the academy, and it's a very large assembly, and all the family members that we can possibly pack into the assembly are invited to prepare. We not only look at preparing the candidate for a lifetime of law enforcement, but we have to prepare the families. So it is something that's very important to us. And it is often pushed aside. After the World Trade Center incident occurred, the country finally started to recognize law enforcement and thank us and appreciate us. And it felt wonderful. Unfortunately, that feeling has gone to the wayside again. I'm almost done here. One of the things that, I mentioned to Pastor Mike about last year, and a little light bulb went off in his head, and how many people have been out in public and seen a police officer in uniform, and then a parent with a child that's acting up, and the parent grabs the child, says, "If you don't behave, I'm going to have them take you to jail." So we don't realize it, but we're instilling into our children a fear of law enforcement. And then the very next week when that child goes to school, and later on, as parents, we tell them, if you're ever lost, who do we tell them to go to? The police officer, who earlier we told them that's going to take them to jail. So they don't know what to do. We're sending a confusing message to them. That's my little soapbox. So, as I'm close, I just wanted to say thank you. And if there's any military people, men, women, thank you for your service. Firefighters, EMS, thank you for your service. When Pastor Mike was talking to the children about the Shepherd's Crook, I was kind of having a little flashback of when I was younger. My stepfather was crippled in one leg and he walked with a cane, and it was kind of an extension of his arm, and I felt like a sheep sometimes getting pulled in. So when Pastor Mike brought that out, I kind of broke into sweat. See, we try to lighten up things as much as we can because, this really is something serious. And I appreciate your time. And as Pastor Mike said, in the programs, there was a card for you to write down a question. I will not be able to explain an officer's actions, but little things. One quick thing. A lot of times people will see a fire truck responding to an emergency, and they have their red lights and sirens going, and they're driving right along. And that's fine. Everybody accepts that. With law enforcement, we have a different way of responding, depending on what the call is. Sometimes we will have our red lights and sirens on. Sometimes we won't. Sometimes we have to respond. We'll be driving fast because we have to get there silent. Such as in the case of a robbery. We don't want to project our presence, so we have to get there fast, but we don't want to project our presence with lights and sirens. That means sometimes we put the lights on at an intersection, and then we shut them off when we get through it. But these are what people see in law enforcement. And not knowing what I just explained to you, we get a very bad reputation as to just playing around, or, oh, where's he going? He didn't put his lights on. Oh, look at him speeding. So it's things like that today's time that I'm speaking to you is short. But my involvement in your life is forever. You can reach me through Pastor Mike. And if you have any questions or anything, please, I'll be around after the service as well. Paul Harvey is a great way to start this presentation. He is a wonderful man, and he lays it out as best as I've ever seen with regards to the life of a police officer and who we are. And there's no better way to close than with this video you're about to see by Brian Adams. And these videos are available on YouTube. This last one is very emotional. And And there's no better way to close today than to show this video and to think about what law enforcement is doing for you and the sacrifices that we make. Thank you.
Can you lay your life down so a stranger can live? Can you take what you need? Take less than you give. Could you close every day without the glory and fame? Could you hold your head